adolescence by design is a time of experimentation. Young people have to figure out how to stretch their limits, to see how far they can go, to see what they're good at, to see what they're not good at. And also to be ready to ultimately launch into adulthood. So we have to let them experiment. We have to let them fail and learn their lessons from that failure. But there are times when our kids stray beyond the rules that we consider acceptable. And that's when we have to bring discipline in. And when we discipline our kids, what we have to make sure is that our kids have learned from the discipline. After all, that's actually what discipline means. It doesn't mean to punish, doesn't mean to control, it means to learn. And optimally, we want them not only to learn, but to grow from the mistake that they've made. When do you discipline? You know, it's not that different when your child's an adolescent as when they were 2. When they were 2 years old, you absolutely let them stretch their limits, you let them make some mistakes, you let them knock things over so they could learn how to pick them back up, you let them help you cook so that they learned how to clean up a mess. Those are the ways we let our kids learn. But there are times that you left no room for error. You didn't let your kid put her hand on the stove. You didn't let him run in the street. So too, with adolescents, there are times that some of their behaviors are the equivalent of running in the street. That's drugs. That's safety issues around driving. Times that are so potentially risky that the answer is no, absolutely no, here are the clear boundaries. But the overwhelming majority of the things that your kid's going to learn from during adolescence are more like learning to cook in the kitchen. What's the right recipe? How do I interact with this person? How late can I stay out? More of the kind of mild things that your child needs to learn from. The key when we discipline, though, is that he learns from the experience. Remember that. Good discipline improves relationships, right? We discipline because we love our children. And even though it might not feel like that to them, how do they know? We tell them. At the same time that we're giving a consequence, we're teaching a lesson, letting them know that this comes because we love them. And when we do that, young people actually appreciate our involvement. They appreciate our guidance. They like the fact that we set borders. When we set very clear borders, they know where they're allowed to experiment within and know that they're going to be safe. They like it. You never want your child to feel as if she's already lost your respect or your knowledge that she's a good person. Another thing not to do. Don't play the, I'm not angry, I'm disappointed, darling card. Because what that does is it makes people really anxious. It makes people feel really nervous inside. And then what begins happening is they begin pulling away from you for a different reason because they don't want to disappoint you and they don't want that uncomfortable feeling again. So now we've talked about what not to do. Let's talk about what to do, all right? The first thing is, when it's the equivalent of walking on the street, act immediately. But in general, see the behavior as a mistake, not a reflection of who your child really is or who your child's become. In fact, always put that mistake within a larger picture of who you know your kid really is. So you might say something like, you know, you've always cared about fairness. I remember when, and then fill in the blank with a great example of where they demonstrated how much they cared about fairness. I'm going to ask you to use that commitment to fairness now to blank, solve this situation. So again, you know what the mistake is, you know what the problem is, you put it into the capability that you know and you trust that they still have. You always cared about protecting others. I remember when I first really noticed that when you protected blank, blank, blank. Right now, I'm going to need you to protect yourself by doing blank, blank, blank. Here's your mistake, but I know you're something much larger. I know you have the skills to correct this situation. That's what you want to communicate. See, people do the right thing when they know that they already possess the capacity to do so. You want to always make sure that you set up a clear path for them to regain their privileges. They've got to know what they can do to get it back. They don't want to feel like they've lost you. Here's the messages you want to send. Privileges are earned, all right? And you have temporarily lost them. emphasis on the word temporarily. And there is a path back, both for me to have absolute trust in you and for you to regain your privileges. You know, this concept of earned privileges is really key to discipline. Privileges are earned when you demonstrate responsibility, right? My goal is for you to have as many freedoms as you can handle. You got to show me what you can handle, though. So when we regain trust with our kids, there's a few rules. One, be really concrete. You need to do this to re-earn my trust. Really clear, really concrete. Next, put a time around it. I'm going to check back with you in another month. And assuming that you continue to do everything I hope for you to do, you're going to have proven to me that you're ready for this privilege. Next, make it reality-based. Make it doable. Don't make it pie in the sky. That's going to make your child feel incapable, anxious, and they're going to give up. And then they're going to sneak. They've got to know, if I stay on the path, everything is going to work out. This stuff takes patience. It really does. And you're going to make some mistakes, or you're going to be the first parent who didn't, right? And what you want to remember is that so many times when we are ready to discipline our kids, we're doing it because we're angry. And what usually makes us angry? It's usually because we were scared, because we love our kids so much and we're worried about them. And so our mama bear or Papa Tiger side comes out and we become incredibly protective and we become incredibly scared. And what's going to be your reaction? Your reaction is going to be, no, you may not. Why? Because you want to keep them in a corner so that you never have to worry about them again. The problem is when we do that, when we overreact, they hear our anger and they worry that they lost us. And when we come up with, consequences that they can't really follow through on, then they go around our consequences. Don't act out of anger. Take a time out. Seriously. Take a time out yourself and just realize my child is safe, my child's okay. Now is the time for me to come up with a path for them to regain my trust.